Well, hello, this is Rochelle, and welcome to my channel. We are going to dive into our envelope art journal again. And for today's video, I'm going to be using stencils and embossing. And you saw me take a Versamark watermark ink. So it's an embossing ink pad, and I dabbed the ink pad through the stencil. So this is just a stencil I had on hand. Put the ink pad through the stencil, dabbed it, not too hard because you don't want it squishing underneath the stencil. I put the embossing powder over, heat set it with my heat gun. Note on when making or embossing, you want a heat tool, blow dryer or a hair dryer will just move the powder off around, whereas a heat gun disperses heat to melt that powder into what then becomes like a plastic. I'm going to use this makeup brush. I scribbled my gelatos on my non-stick surface, my non-stick craft mat, and picked it up with this makeup brush and then just blended it into the background. And then I just take a tissue or a napkin or a serviette to wipe off the excess from the embossed or plastic pieces that was now heat set or melted onto this page. Next up, I'm going to take that gelato. I took that gelato and scribbled it directly onto my surface, and then just took my finger. I did not dampen my finger, just took my finger straight to this page and blended it in. This page is also not prepped with any gesso or medium to make the gelato blend better. It just really blends beautifully onto any surface. And next up, I'm taking that same stencil motif I used and picking up the gelatos with a baby wipe. So now I have that stenciled image both in the embossed areas and in the negative space, which is then the pieces that I picked up with the wet wipe or a baby wipe. I am going to heat set it again with my heat tool, just to make sure that everything's tightly onto the page and doesn't come off. I'm going to do some white splatters. For this I use a Winsor Newton acrylic ink and a fan brush. I dip my fan brush straight into the ink and then just splatter it over the surface in various areas and letting that dry so that I could move on to the next technique. I have these black and white or black stamped flowers on white paper that I cut out, fussy cut before. I saw Heba do this. She's Heba or My Little Journal on YouTube. Do go check her out. She took a bunch of her flower stamps and just had them ready, stamped on white paper, cut out to the side for whenever she needs them. And I'm enjoying using them. And I took a Karen Joan stamp set. I believe that's how you say her name, Karen Joan. Stamp set, and I'm going to again emboss the stamp set onto this page. I'm using white powder this time, or embossing powder this time. I think both of the powder sets that I've used is Ranger ones. This is a super fine white. And what I'm doing here is there was a sentiment already stamped out on a stamp set in full that says "Live life in full bloom," but I only wanted the "in full," so I took my washi tape and masked off the rest of the stamp set that I didn't want. So the "Live life," because I've just done that bold, and then the bloom I'm going to do a die cut. So I masked over the words that I didn't want, stamped it or put it into the ink pad, took off the washi, and then stamped it down so that I got only the "in full," and then putting my powder over and melting it onto that again with my heat tool. I am using this Go Cut Emboss folder thing for the first time, using these blooming Karen Joan die cut. Not 100% sure that I did it right, but yes, there we go. Tried it. It did kind of indent my plate, but I'm guessing that's pretty normal. And then just sticking it down with some glue, some ordinary glue. I did drop that. Sorry about that. Real life. And then just sticking down the flowers in random areas. Also have some leaf stamps that I've got cut out in the same way, ready to go. And then, like I said, just putting those flowers in an arrangement, one on top of the other, just kind of having it there as a little cluster to my sentiment, which is live life in full bloom. So in this time when we're in lockout, I want to encourage you to, if you haven't yet, start creating, do something. It really kind of takes the slump out of the, being at home and during work, in between, take your lunch break, be creative. It just calms your brain down a bit. I did take that same acrylic ink and created a little border just with a normal brush around this page, and then pretty much calling it a day. Did add some Nuvo crystal drops just to the centers of those flowers for a bit of dimension. And that is that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.